Welcome to Greiner Hard Talks. Today, once again, I want to talk about sustainability, I want to talk about change, and I want to talk about transformation. How to build a more sustainable future and how to build more sustainable businesses. This today I want to discuss with Rainer Pernecker, the CEO of Greiner Bio1. Welcome, Rainer.
Welcome, thank you for inviting me.
Rainer, we have a lot of topics. We are right in the middle of a global health crisis and you're running a healthcare company. So that is one topic that we're going to address today. But before we jump into the topic of sustainability, I want to get to know you as a person, and I brought a couple of sentences that I would like you to finish.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yes.
My first sentence is, if I had a chance to meet one famous person for dinner, that person would be?
Barack Obama.
Second sentence, what I love most about my job is?
I love most that I have a good freedom to pick the topics where I would like to put my personal focus on.
What are those topics? What are you currently focusing on?
On our strategy, of course, and within our strategy we have a lot of different topics, and I have the flexibility to pick the ones where I get more involved, and we have, of course, other colleagues, and they gotta handle some of the other ones.
We're going to come back to the strategy topic. Yeah, where are we in the future? I think that is a core part of this interview here. But now coming back to my third question, my favorite food is?
Pasta. There is so much variety of pasta, I think I like it all.
You can have that every day.
Yeah.
Next sentence. The one thing I always wanted to try but never did.
Playing the drums, playing the drums, like in a group of people, kind of.
Why did that never happen? Why didn't that work out?
I just never made it on my to-do list, kind of, with that high priority. I think it's still something where I'm thinking of, but I never made it happen.
Well, it's never too late. Next sentence. My preferred nature landscape is?
Is a waterfall. I like waterfalls, with the energy of the water, with the movement. Yeah, I like to watch waterfalls.
Water, a very important resource. We're also going to discuss that later, how we consume and how we deal with water as a company. Now, next sentence. The one word which describes me best.
Independent.
Last sentence. My biggest dream is?
If I would walk, through the country to the city, and everybody I meet is smiling.
That's great. That's a dream that I probably going to share. Now, let's jump into the topic of sustainability. And I said, you're not just the CEO right now, you're the CEO of a healthcare industry, and we are right in the middle still. I mean, everyone is hoping for an end, but we are still in the middle of a global healthcare crisis. So tell me, how did 2020, how did the pandemic affect Greiner Bio1?
Well, for us, of course, as you said, it's a big picture, kind of, and it's a big topic for us. And really, we didn't know what it means. So starting into the year when the pandemic, it hit the first peak, we really were kind of thinking how bad is it going to be, but also at the same time looking what are the opportunities. So, now looking back for the year, we were kind of lucky so that we had some products which were really required in the situation we are, basically. And that's something where we have seen big differences. Some of our products, which are typically used on a daily basis, were not needed, but for some of the other ones, the demand increased due to this pandemic situation and the additional testing going on all over the world.
Did we ever put that into our focus, that our products could be so important in terms of like fighting a pandemic? Was that ever an idea, something that you captured before? So like, oh yeah, this is a very useful product for such a situation?
Not really. You know, it's funny because we talked about a strategy, and in our strategy last year, we looked into expansion of our products. And molecular diagnostic products was one area where we felt that we should be more active. But we did not have any idea or any vision that this could be so important in a short period of time. We were thinking more like a long-term plan.
So tell me, like the first weeks, like how did that work? Were there customers, laboratories, hospitals calling you every day and saying like, we need testing materials? I mean, how did that evolve in and becoming such a huge topic for us as a company?
Well, actually, in the first couple of weeks, you know, the demand was going down, you know, and even before it hit Europe, we have our colleagues already in China. So we talked already previously or before the pandemic hit Europe, we talked to the colleagues in Beijing, and they already were telling us that hospitals are closing, so they don't take patients, kind of. So the demand for our standard products in the first couple of weeks was really kind of going down.
Did that make you nervous at that time? We were
Yes.
like, oh God, what's happening in China? It's going to come to Europe and the rest of the world?
Definitely, it made us very, very nervous and thinking about, you know, how is this going to impact our business, because you know the hospital or the people in the hospital in some examples in China were reduced by 90%. So luckily, it didn't have the same magnitude in Europe, and it didn't have the same impact in the different countries. So we were able to manage on a global basis very well, but still we were afraid of having a really heavy negative impact for us.
Now, Corona also turned our lives in general upside down. Yeah, and we would all like work from home and do like, you know, things very differently. What are the 3 takeaways from 2020 for you as a manager? Like, you know, are we going to continue doing home office like we do right now? Did it affect our culture in any way? What do you take away as a lesson learned?
I think the one lesson what we had really, and it's a good example, that if everybody is working together, we are capable also to adapt fast. And this is also with new products, starting from the supplier, starting from the technology companies, but also including the regulation authorities. So this was a big thing for our products and for other companies in the healthcare industry, that even the typical, you know, regulatory agencies, they found a way to get fast-track approvals, which was necessary because of the speed of the pandemic. I think this was something where we really see, and what we should keep, to seek how can we make things, developments faster. I think the second one you already mentioned, you know, flexibility, remote working. I think we have seen that it's working very well, so nobody has to be afraid that the work is not getting done. But on the other hand, I think also people realize that 100% home office is not an option too in the long run. So I think this flexibility really is something what we have to deal with and will stay also for the future. And the third thing I think is really we have to put more focus on also being flexible, kind of being agile. I think that the dynamics of the situation is gotta change, probably not as fast as during a pandemic situation, but definitely the world is turning faster.
Now, let's talk about, or let's jump into the topic of sustainability a little closer. Because in general, people would argue supporting health is already like the best thing you can do, and it's probably like the most sustainable thing you can do. Yeah. Is there anything more sustainable? I don't think there is. Still, we have to admit that obviously our business also comes with negative environmental impacts. Yeah? We use material, we use water, there's emissions. Give me an overview, like, you know, how do we ensure that we reduce our footprint to a minimum?
Well, I think there are multiple ways. You know, we cannot change it from one day to the other one completely. And as you said, it's kind of a trade-off to make sure that we provide the best products and the best solution in order to maintain the health or to make sure that people stay healthy. But on the other hand, we know a lot of our products are like one-time use products. So I think we can look from a product side, you know, we just gotta have to make sure that we use as less resources as possible to begin with. And particularly in these critical components in these products. Also for manufacturing these products, we use as less energy as possible. So that's in terms of products and manufacturing. I think in terms of what can we do, there is also part in our products like packaging materials, like where we really have to be able and to look to bring it into a circular concept, kind of. You know, even if there are still some products which cannot be used multiple times and which are hard to really recycle. I think there is still plenty of opportunity to focus on the areas where we can already start.
But how do we do that? I mean, if you were just saying, like, we have a lot of single-use products, how do we make them circular? Because, like, by definition, single-use is not circular, is a classic linear model. Like, what is the game changer? How do we get from a linear to a circular economy?
I think as of today, we don't have the technology and the knowledge how to convert 100%. But as you said, single use is for part of our products. There, as of today, we can see that this is lose as less energy and as less resources as possible. But the product comes with the packaging. You know, we have options basically to approach it from that angle. I think also on the other hand, you know, there will be developments which we cannot think of as of today, and hopefully they also turn in the midterm or they bring solutions that we can also have the final product, you know, to really bring it into a recycling opportunity or into a recycling process.
And where do we need to see these improvements? Is that material? Is that technology? Is that, well, chemical recycling? Where do you detect those, or where do these changes need to come from?
I think it's a little bit of everything. Definitely it has to come together. But I give you an example. For example, we have for blood collection, for blood sampling, we have different sizes of tubes. In terms of technology, it would be very easy to use the smallest tube, which is the standard tube for blood collection all over the world. Kind of, it's like 13 millimeter and 75 millimeter. But there are also 16 by 100, which is the tube itself is more than twice as heavy, and it uses much more energy to produce these tubes. Still in the whole industry, the instruments which are used in the laboratories, part of it is still accustomed, equipped to use these big tubes. So it would be already an easy fix to kind of try to reduce the resources which we already have in our existing products. But nevertheless, we need to even advance in this area, make it smaller again, you know, and try to even optimize it. I think in really to bring it into a full circular economy model, I think without advancements in chemical recycling, without advancement in materials, without advancement in further manufacturing technologies, it's not gonna happen. But we gotta have to keep pushing it.
Now, you have mentioned the role of suppliers already, yeah, and we are obviously like having a huge network of suppliers, since we have like a lot of production sites across the world. You know, we are like in the US, there's Latin America, Europe. So that obviously creates an impact. There's a footprint with being a global player. Tell us, like, how do we manage to reduce the footprint being a global player? Just think about our supply chain, yeah, which I can believe is obviously not easy to manage, but there's also great footprint implications.
I think that's a perfect example where even the pandemic situation helps to rethink the footprint, the global footprint, not only on your manufacturing area, but also in terms of your supply network. Because over the last decades, it was always very cost-driven. in a global scale to see what is our supply chain, you know. But beside the impact to the climate, also the flexibility or the limitation with such a global supply chain became very obvious over the last couple of months to see, you know, if you have a pandemic situation, regional suppliers, regional manufacturing, regional materials availability are essential to keep. So from that point of view, I think aside the sustainability view of it, even this flexibility helps us to really focus on having more regional sources. And by doing that, this will, of course, have a positive impact to the emissions based on global transportation.
You've already touched on the point of climate and the climate crisis. I mean, everyone talks about it, and the expectation towards a company is very clear. You need to contribute to reach the Paris Agreement. Now, I see developments, for instance, in the UK, where the National Health Service says by 2030 we only want climate neutral products. Now, tell me, do you forecast, or do you, looking into the future, see that like for other markets as well, that people want climate neutral products, or that they select suppliers based on their emission and climate performance?
I think definitely this will play a bigger role. And you know, and whenever you have to do with bigger organizations, you know, when they are also thinking in a more structured way about their, on the one hand, opportunities or possibilities, but on the other hand, also about the impact. The bigger the organization, the customers, you know, these health organizations are, the more important it is that we do something together. In other words, it's easier if you feel that you're just a smaller organization with a not so heavy impact. Basically, it's also easier not to think about it in that substantial way.
So is that a topic when you talk to the general managers around the world? Do you talk about sustainability and how to get to more green energy and reducing emissions?
Definitely, it's something, and it's even the other way around. You know, it's not the same hot topic in every country. But we see the countries where, as your example in the UK, you know, that's definitely a topic which is coming from the customer also to us, and we have to find answers and really try to find ways how can we contribute as good as we can.
Part of a circular economy is also looking into different business models, yeah, and that's something I also want to discuss with you. Are you discussing with your management teams on like very different business models? For instance, you could say like, you know, all the medical devices we supply to a laboratory, we're going to take back and then look into the recycling ourselves and just leaving it to the market. You could like, you know, do like plenty of other things. Is that something, different business models, getting away from single use and, you know, our converting role, providing something? Is that something that you look into?
I think we look into it from an angle that we see also how is the healthcare market changing, kind of. And we talked about, you know, changes from remote working, office working, and we also will see, you know, what does it mean in terms of point of care testing. So people, you know, do their own tests basically without needing a laboratory, without needing to go to a hospital, kind of things. And by looking at this will support our trend for miniaturization of products, kind of just to make it more efficient. I think due to some regulations and we never looked into kind of recycling, taking back the used products.
And I think recycled content is a good example because in most cases, virgin material is more costly than recycled material. Mm-hmm. I mean, it shouldn't be the case, but then in the end, something that is more sustainable is actually not profitable. Yeah, I think that's the broader sense. Yeah, and that's something that we obviously need to discuss as a company. How do we deal with that? Yeah, because here we could choose a more sustainable behavior.
But that's also, on the part in the interaction with our suppliers, with resources we have, but also we have a high focus within our facilities, with our manufacturing environment. Try to minimize waste to begin with. Kind of, every really also put a high level in our quality management system, in our quality control to kind of find out errors or irregularities as soon as possible, because the sooner you catch it, the higher is the probability that you're able to recycle whatever is not compliant.
Now, you already mentioned suppliers. Now, when it comes to sustainability, we could use our market strength. I mean, we are a huge company. We are buying a lot of material, a lot of products. Do we engage and interact on the topic of sustainability with our suppliers?
I think, we are monitoring our suppliers very well, also from a sustainable point of view. Right now, for all of our major suppliers, we have supplier auditing programs in place. Kind of in the scope of what they're doing. And definitely we also have the plan to extend on this program just to be more knowledgeable and also to bring the message to our suppliers. We care and it is important for us also what you do.
But what exactly do they want? I mean, what are they asking? Is it about materials? Is it about end of life of our products? Is it about green energy? Is it about that we have a sustainable car policy? About how we travel? What is it? What do they want to know, customers?
I think some of them are really wanting to have some kind of ratings for sustainability. Some of them are really asking, how do you deal with environmental topics? Some of them are really asking and say, hey, what do you do in order to reduce the waste? Because you send us all these products, what are we going to do with it?
Fair question.
Fair questions, yes. And I think different areas or different questions.
Now, if you look at our sustainability performance, if you have to name 2 areas where we need to improve, where you feel like, okay, we started, but we are not there yet. What are the 2 areas where you see we need to, put in some effort and speed up?
I think emissions is definitely something. I think it's one of the most important ones. And I think diversity, kind of, people from the people side. I think that's something where we need to improve, to speed up, even though I know it's not an easy thing.
Why is it not an easy thing? Because you're basically stealing one of my next topics that I had on my list. Why is it so difficult? Not just for us. I mean, I keep reading that that it's so difficult for a lot of companies. Yeah, and as a society, we struggle to get to 50-50 where we should be, I believe. What is the structural problem with diversity?
I think if we look in diversity just from a gender point of view, kind of, I think it's probably the society, the understanding, the opportunities also for women to participate in different functions in organization.
So looking into the future, what are the 2-3 things that we need to change to promote diversity? And let's focus on gender, because as a company, we have a gender problem. Just look at the senior managers at Greiner. Yeah? We need to speed up. So what is on your agenda? What can we change within a couple of years to actually get to a different and better representation of women?
I think first of all we have to actively search for it. We gotta have to let the rest of the world know that that's something what we're looking for. That's so in order to find the people. I think we also have to see in terms of development structure, development process from women which are already working in our organization, and they are out for several reasons, for a period of time. How do we make sure that they can come back, and really further develop and don't have these gap in there, which makes it hard to catch up later on again. I think that's something what we need to focus.
Now, we are almost at the end, but there's one thing that I need to talk with you, and that is something that I've read in your office. In your office, there's a postcard or a little poster that says, auf das Wesentliche beschränken, which translates into reduce to the essentials. What does it do with you? Like, why is that in your office? Why is it so important? I mean, you're giving a message out.
Well, why is it important? Because I think it needs you to focus. And if you want to reduce it to whatever is essential, first of all, you need to have a clear purpose. So, because what is essential depends very much on what do you want to accomplish. So, first of all, it's not just only that you kind of try to focus yourself, but in order to be able to focus, you need to have a clear purpose. And depending on what your purpose is, kind of, you should find out what is important for accomplishing this. So it's kind of like a cycle, and I think that's also kind of in our sustainability. We have to see what is important, where can we make an impact, where do we need to focus, and if we have a clear picture of what is important for us, what's the purpose, then we should really kind of get rid of the dust and get rid of the noise, so to speak, and focus on what is essential.
Rainer, we are almost at the end. Before I have to let you go, I brought a few buzzwords, and I would like to ask you to respond with whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Yeah? Just one word,
okay,
or maybe a sentence if you feel like you need to explain
okay.
it. So, first one is going to be easy for you. That's health.
Highest personal priority for everybody.
Second buzzword is power.
With power comes responsibility.
The next one I'm looking forward to, the next one is difference.
Watch out for the difference which makes a difference.
Good. Next buzzword is team spirit.
Well, team spirit is should be this additional booster to accomplish something.
Next buzzword is mistakes.
Without mistakes, there is no development.
Rainer, one last sentence. If you had a message to the world, what would that message be? Make it the Greiner world. Just imagine if you have to give advice or have one message to everyone. What is important when it comes to us and sustainability and your ambition?
Well, then I would go with our logo. Be aware that if we want to create a better future, you can make the difference.
Great. What a way to end this interview. Rainer, thank you very much for being here. I very much enjoyed this. I think time was flying, so that's usually a very good sign. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you.
I hope you also enjoyed this. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay happy, and all the best. Thank you.